What does a World War II bomber have to do with social media influencers? During the Second World War, the British Royal Air Force, or RAF, were running bombing missions, and the RAF wanted to know why planes were being shot down. So what the RAF would do is when a plane returned from a mission, they would take data from that plane on where it had been hit by flak and then use that to reinforce the aircraft structure. And the data they found is represented on this diagram here. Now, do you notice anything interesting about this diagram? Well, the places that have been hit seem, well, rather non-critical. For example, there are no points on either of the engines, and there's no bullet holes on the cockpit either. Now, I don't know about you, but it seems that a plane requires engines and a pilot to fly. And this was the major issue with the data they were using. It's called survivorship bias. The data was only being taken from planes that had successfully landed after completing a mission. Obviously, these aircraft had suffered non-critical damage, otherwise they wouldn't have returned to the airbase. So what the RAF ended up doing was adding a load of armour to areas that were non-critical, and this slowed down the planes and actually meant they were more likely to go down. And in this case, it demonstrates the life or death consequences of using data which is incomplete. So what's this got to do with social media influencers? Well, in my opinion, there are two types of social media influencers. Specifically in the finance niche, these two tend to be more present. Now, I'm not saying any particular channel is guilty of this, or I'm not even saying that your channel, because it fits into this niche, can be misconstrued in this way. Gotta bat away those cease and desist letters. However, in my opinion, the first group are those who are just lying to you. For example, they say they did X and they've made X amount of money. Well, in this situation, they just haven't. They're just lying to you. And in fact, their income and their wealth is directly linked to you buying their course and buying into this idea. So that's one group. The other group is more interesting. And these are people who maybe have actually done what they've said they've done. However, the likelihood of this being repeatable or reproducible is very, very low. For example, I bought X and I sold it for Y and made this amount of money. Well, sure you did, but that doesn't mean anyone else can do that. Maybe you were just very lucky. A good example of this comes from football. So if we look, for example, at the World Cup right now, countries are allowed to take a 26-man squad, but there are far more than 26 professional footballers in each of those countries. Maybe not all of them. Qatar. But the point is, because of how visualized those individual players are, you go, right, well, actually, there's a high probability of you becoming a football player. Well, actually, there's not, because for each one of those places, there may be 1,000, 100,000 other people who tried for that place but failed. So in effect, what we're seeing is only those people that have survived, that have got to play top-level football. We're not seeing the countless other people who have failed to try and achieve that. And this is true as well with, say, finance. Because maybe you've succeeded in a business model, but actually, a load of other people will try that model too and will fail. And of course, those people that fail aren't going to publicize that on TikTok. And this is why I wanted to do Movember for this month, because I wanted to raise awareness for the often challenging environment that especially young men are growing up in. When they're seeing people on TikTok who are saying they're wealthy, famous, happy, etc., and they start judging themselves based off of those TikToks, when they're not aware of how unlikely and improbable, but also how tailored and controlled those kind of TikToks are. Like, you're only going to see the good side of people on TikTok. You're never going to see the bad. And the actual reason for that is survivorship bias. And that explains